I received a question from a father who has been doing real love with his children for a while, been doing the parenting training. And he says, I have a son who often says, I can't do that. And you can hear it's not just an annoyance, it's a pessimism, it's a fatalism, a discouragement in the kid's voice. I can't do that. And then he adds, which proves the discouragement, I can't do anything right. Oof, that's awful to hear. He'll say that about schoolwork, playing a sport, pretty much anything. He seems to have a pessimistic outlook on everything. If I just tell him that he needs to feel more loved, which I haven't done yet, what difference will that make? That's a really good question, and brings up why it is that we're constantly loving and teaching, not just teaching. And if you just teach somebody, oh, well, you need to feel more loved. That would be like telling somebody who's having a hard time dunking the basketball, you just need to be taller. That's not going to work. It will make a difference when you tell him that don't tell him this until he feels more love from you. But if he already is feeling the love, sometimes you can teach him this and it just hasn't occurred to him. Put it together that feeling more loved actually leads to more competence. No joke. Your son's biggest obstacle, and you're going to tell him this in whatever form you choose, is not his ability. It's not that he can't do that thing. His obstacle is pain, pessimism, futility, and fear. All things that he's learned up to this point in his childhood, primarily from you. No guilt. You did the best you could. Fear and pain make everything more difficult. There are uncounted psychological studies that show that when people are afraid, their performance goes down, like a lot. When they're afraid, their performance goes down. And intuitively, you know that. I give you a 4-line poem to memorize. And you memorize it in, I don't know, however many minutes it takes for you. And then I give you another 4-line poem, similar difficulty, except this time I'm slapping you as you're learning it. You're not going to learn it as well. Fear poisons everything. And what gets rid of fear? Love does. If he feels genuinely loved, and you can even ask him, think about the times that you felt genuinely loved by me. Have you felt afraid then? Did you feel pessimistic then? And if he doubts it, you say, it was really a rhetorical question. As I'm looking at you, I can see your fear just disappear. When he feels loved, then the pain and fear diminish or disappear. The obstacles are gone, fear and pain. And only then, when you feel loved and there's no fear and no pain, only then can you know whether you can do a thing. So if while you're afraid, you say, oh, I can't do that, you don't really know. There's a great scene in a movie from, gotta be 20 plus years ago, easy. Denzel Washington was in the play and Matthew Broderick. And they were in a play or in a movie about the Civil War, and the details aren't that important, although I highly recommend the movie for like anybody. They were drilling soldiers on how to load and shoot muskets, which is no small thing to do correctly. You do it wrong, you don't get to shoot, and then the other guy gets to shoot you. One soldier, when they first started out, was doing better than all the other soldiers. So the colonel, played by Matthew Broderick, came up and demanded, while he was loading his rifle and shooting, faster, faster. And he started screaming in this guy's ear, faster, faster. And then, while he was in the process of loading and shooting, he started shooting his own pistol near the soldier's head. That sounds cruel, but in real life, you don't get to be out on a field on a nice day, sipping tea and shooting at the enemy. The sound, people who think they know what a gunshot sounds like from listening to a movie don't know anything. It's deafening. And when there are, 5,000 rifles going off around you, you can't hear for hours afterward. So the more that the colonel screamed at this soldier, intentionally, he wasn't angry, and shooting a pistol into the air, the soldier just rapidly fell to pieces and became paralyzed, emotionally paralyzed, dropped his rifle and his gear, stood there in a heap, tears running down his face, did everything but wet his pants. So what changed? The soldier proved that he could do it in the beginning. Proof, he did it. In fact, he did it better than anybody in the whole line of soldiers that were shooting. But fear changed everything. Now I'm working backward. You can do a thing, fear eliminates it. If you're not sure whether you can do a thing, fear eliminates that too. So they drilled more and more, faster and faster, with yelling and screaming, not to be punitive, but to simulate battle. And then under fire, not just with pistols being shot near them, but we've discovered in modern days that soldiers perform better when they learn how to march, crawl, climb through the brush, load their rifle, shoot the rifle, while there actually is live fire, bullets whistling over their head, until the soldiers lose their fear. And that worked for this particular soldier in the scene, so that when later in the movie, the enemy came at him screaming, like his colonel had done, and firing rifles and pistols at him, he's going, I'm not afraid. I've already experienced this. And he could load and fire faster and more accurately even than he did in the beginning when there was no fire. It saved his life, having no fear. Have your boy watch that scene in the movie Glory. In this case, confidence eliminated his fear. Some element of love because his colonel and the people training him cared enough about him to save his life. But confidence eliminated his fear, but also the love of his officers. And in the case of our children, they lose their fear with our love alone. Now, if you add competence to our love, well, then their confidence grows even more. And they discover they have all kinds of abilities and talents. New subject. One day a father said to his son, I noticed that the dishes were not washed last night, and pretty sure that was your job. And the son said, you're angry at me. I feel like you're yelling. Where does it tend to go from there? Straight into the toilet, because you've all heard it. This is similar to a conversation we had in the last Facebook Live. The father said, no, I'm not. Once we start with, yes, you did. No, I don't. And then the father says, yes, you are. And the father says, no, I was just, these are the conversations that end up with, yo mama. They just don't go anywhere. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. There's no positive yield to such a conversation. It just becomes an argument. And more anger is piled onto the fire and everybody's unhappy. So what can we do about it? Easy. Love and teach. Again. Now, that's really vague, so I'm going to get more specific. What is the first, most immediate, easiest, powerful step that we can do to be loving towards somebody else? Easiest by far, and you can do it right now. Listen. But neither person here was listening. So now what? Again, it's still easy. The first person to speak is the speaker. He or she, whoever spoke first, they come in from out of the room and they open their mouth, or the other person opens their mouth and the other person comes from. That's the speaker. That's the speaker until they're done speaking. The speaker establishes the subject. The other person then, obviously, is the listener. It's just not complicated. Who listens both to the speaker and to the subject that the speaker introduced. It's just simple and powerful. So let's look at what happened in light of what we've discussed. Dad says to his son, I noticed that the dishes were not washed last night, and that was your job. Who is the speaker? Dad walked in the room and started speaking. Dad is the speaker. Done. He started talking. Son may have a million other things to talk about. He can wait till Dad's done. Being the speaker doesn't make everybody else lose something. Their order of speaking is now second. That's all. What is the subject? The subject is the son's lack of responsibility. Not overall, maybe, but in this particular case, yes. The son didn't like being embarrassed by the message, didn't like exposing his lack of responsibility. So what did he do? We have to be able to identify what's happening so we can change it, choose differently, and get the conversation back on track. What did the son do? The son had changed the subject to dad's anger, kind of like we talked about in the last Facebook Live. Whether dad really was angry or not is irrelevant. The subject has been changed, so the conversation, a real conversation, is over. So maybe dad's angry. We'll talk about that later, but the subject is the son washing the dishes. So what can dad do here? Because it's the dad's responsibility. He's the parent. He said, our conversation to his son began with me telling you that you hadn't done your job. I shouldn't even have had to tell you that you didn't do your job, but I did because I care about you. I would like to help you learn to be more responsible. You were embarrassed when you realized that you'd been irresponsible. You didn't want to admit it, which I understand too. So you changed the subject to something about me. You said I was angry. If you want to talk about me, we will. We will not ignore what you want to say. I'm not stopping you from talking. But first, we have to finish the subject I initiated. Why? Because I'm the dad? No, because I started the subject. I'm the speaker. So now, we're going to try this again. Back to the jobs that you left undone yesterday. Start over. I can see that you didn't do your job from yesterday. The son said, I didn't have time. Dad says, you've changed the subject. The subject was your responsibility of doing the job, not whether you had time or not. You changed the subject to I don't have enough time, and we know that's not true because you spent time playing video games yesterday and you watched YouTube, time you could have spent on your job. So now, back to the subject again. We're going to try a third time. And we'll stay here for as long as it takes. Can you hear my tone of voice? That's how Dad spoke. We're going to stay here for as long as it takes. Not irritated, not snotty, not sarcastic. This is what we're going to do because it's that important. That's why. So Dad sat there and they talked and talked until the son could say these things. And you can make your own list for whatever constitutes learning for a child on a given occasion. They sat there until the son could say, I didn't want to do my jobs. That's the truth. See, that's staying with the subject. Why did you not do your responsibility? Oh, I didn't really want to. But we've listened to excuses for our whole lives. So we make them instead of telling the truth. I didn't really want to. There are sometimes I set a task to do for myself in a day. And I don't do it by the end of the day. And I go, well, pretty clearly I didn't want to do it that badly. So I put it on for the next day. And usually that's enough to do it. Then son said, I did everything else I could think of. YouTube, video games, texting, until I was so tired that I could hardly stay awake. So then I could justify going to bed, which is normally a good thing to do. But really, I was avoiding doing my jobs. There is no justification for not doing my work. They sat there until the son could say that. Not reluctantly, but freely, until he demonstrated that he learned the lesson. That's the point. It's not until the son goes, okay, I was irresponsible, and I'll be more responsible next time. Because you'll all see that from a kid. That doesn't count as anything. That's when you actually get to say, that sounded distinctly like the buzzing of flies. It's meaningless. You keep going till it's sincere, till the lesson is learned. So Dad said, excellent truth-telling. And it was. So see, Dad's not just looking to pick at the kid. He's telling him when he didn't do a thing, Then he's telling him when he did do a thing. Well, good job of telling the truth. Then Dad gave his son an hour and a half to complete his jobs from yesterday and added Mom's household jobs to complete by the rest of the day. So because the son had made excuses and all that, and the son hadn't exactly established a pattern of being responsible, he said, I'm going to help you remember. So we've done love and teach with words. You've resisted that. You did finally get to the truth, but as an added incentive, as a bonus, we'll have you do Mom's household jobs, laundry and dishes for the rest of the day, which was a lot more work than the son had been assigned in the first place. So what did the son learn? If I avoid doing my job, I'll still have to do my job, and I'll get a job even bigger. That's a motivating lesson. Kind of like, I could speed. I could go over the speed limit, and I might get away with it. But the time that I don't get away with it, I'm going to get points on my license. I'm going to get a $232.50 fine. And I'm really going to hate the effect on my insurance when they say, have you had any tickets in the last year? Well, yeah, there was that one where it was, see? We're motivated to stop doing a thing that's not productive by often contemplating or experiencing the consequences of it. Changing the subject happens far more than we realize, like a lot. It's classic victimhood. If you don't like something, talk about something where you can be the victim. Everybody does it. Watch a conversation with any politician. The exceptions are very rare. You ask a politician a question about why he didn't fulfill his promise to do X, and then the politician answers with, isn't it wonderful that I have this new program called Y? He didn't address X at all. I don't normally watch the news, but every once in a while, I'll watch an interview and go, these guys are very good at changing the subject. And our kids do it, and we do it. We just need to be aware of it so it can stop, because it prevents learning. I talked to a mother, new subject, whose kids were completely out of control. I mean, crazy. They were keeping no rules at all. Illegal drugs, doing whatever they felt like. One had dropped out of school. Mother just had no clue what to do. And I described what needed to be done. Both boys were over 18. They were using illegal drugs in the house. And in this country, at least, if they catch the boys who are adults with illegal drugs in your house, they can and often do simply take possession of your house. And getting your house back turns out to be one of the most difficult things on earth, legally speaking, and you usually don't succeed. If they take your house as a result of a narcotics violation, for example, you're gone, it's gone. So I suggested that she had taught them in words many times that she simply disinvite them from living with her. That means throw them out. Because they hadn't responded to anything else. No amount of teaching had made any difference. It's illegal, it's wrong, you don't have jobs, it's killing you. They didn't care. She said, well, now what do I do? I told them to leave the house and they won't leave. I said, easy. You call the police, you ask them to come quietly, you'll take the police directly to their stash of drugs and show it to them, and they will escort the boys out of the house and they won't take your house. She said, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to them. I couldn't do that to my boyfriend, the one that lives with me. I would feel bad. Do you see what happened here? I said it was a new subject when I said we were going to talk about the mom, but it was actually a trick. It's the same subject. She changed the subject. She began the subject, which was what she was the speaker initially. She called me. The subject was the boys. I answered the subject. I talked about the boys and what needed to be done with the boys to A, teach them something, and B, save her house and save her sanity. She didn't like the subject, so she changed the subject to what? We weren't talking about the boys anymore. Her pain, her embarrassment, her friends, her boyfriend, what other people would say. Maybe her boyfriend wouldn't like her anymore. She changed the subject, and she has allowed the boys to change the subject on her so many times that she's just completely out of control. She has effectively become dead to these kids. She thinks she has a relationship with them, and she's afraid she'll lose it if she throws them out of the house. She doesn't have a relationship with them, and there's more than one person who's listening to the sound of my voice right now who can identify with this situation, with kids who are breaking the law or not doing anything and staying in the house and learning nothing. But she doesn't have a relationship with them. That's already done. That's gone. She's a hostage. When we change the subject, there is no hope that the first subject will be addressed. That's a problem. Then we have 2 unaddressed subjects, which quickly turns to 3 and 4, and now nobody even remembers where we started, and there's no hope of resolution at all. Watch for it. Watch for when you and other people change the subject. Watch for it in every conversation that goes badly. Think back to how the conversation began, what was the real subject, and how did you, or possibly somebody else, change the subject. And you'll learn a lot from that. You'll notice throughout this particular conversation, we've talked about changing the subject, we've talked about some other things, but it's consistently about being more aware as a parent. We don't have to work harder to be good parents, but we do have to be a great deal more aware about what they're doing, what we're doing, what the subject of the conversation is. If the subject of the conversation changes, whether we're being consistent in our consequences, whether we're loving and teaching, the more aware we are, because we are inherently good people, the more likely it is that we will do what is most productive and that we will teach our children to feel loved and to be loving and responsible. We'll see you tomorrow.